Okay, so hi. Um, it's been a minute, and I mean it's been a minute longer than I would have liked. I've been working on some different video topics, and the research is kind of getting ahead of me. I have work, I have my health, I have my own metaphysical, spiritual nonsense that I have to be working out. I've been dating people, and that's been going great. So I'm doing more, even though I feel like I'm not accomplishing as much. But things are going pretty okay. So a couple times so far, I have mentioned that I have experienced some medical issues in the past, or at least events in my life that warranted me wanting to call the ambulance, that warranted me wanting to seek medical attention, that wanted me to be near a doctor and get help from my body so that I could continue to survive. Because if you forgot about this one thing that happened in 2020, specifically on the Ides of March, March 15th, the day Caesar got stabbed in the back by the assembly. Shutdowns and quarantines happened for a disease called COVID-19, where people all across the globe had to quarantine within inside their houses in order to avoid a disease which caused respiratory failure and put people on ventilators. And I know we all know this because we've all been, hopefully surviving and living through something globally traumatizing. And when I say globally traumatizing, I mean, I think we overlook the fact that life is now inherently more stressful. Like, we all talked about this idea of going back to normal, that there would be a world to go back to, that there would be some regulatory peace. And the thing people overlook is that simultaneously or within the same time frame in a very short period of time, millions of people unrelated to and untouched by one another all died of the same thing, or at least put down a further path of decline because of it, right? Like, the disease caused other things. Other things happen on top of COVID 19. If you have cancer, chances are you are going to get hit by COVID 19 worse than someone who didn't have it. If you experience past medical problems like arthritis or heart pain or just a lot of other physical ailments on top of what was going on, chances are you were affected greater by it. So, of course, Darwinism, survival of the fittest, people who are just healthier, more apt, or in a better place to get medical attention, eat healthier food, exercise regularly. Yeah, chances are they fared out better than most people or other people who did not, right? That being said, it's also a new and novel disease, which is why the quarantines were important, to help mitigate the shock and help diffuse the amount of people all at once that would need medical attention. And I know that I'm not speaking crazy because there were constant videos when COVID 19 first hit about nurses not having masks, nurses being infected, nurses having to quarantine separately from their families, apart from like their loved ones, their children, their partners, their dogs, so that they wouldn't infect people. And we still lost doctors and nurses. Like, the problems with COVID 19 is not that it was just a little flu and just a little chaos, but it established new patterns of normalcy where, remember, entire communities or entire extended families were hit or have been affected, disabled by a new disease all around the same time, which means there were lots of gaps left behind by a lot of, laborers, people who were the chefs, were the waiters, were the grocery store workers, people who were fathers, mothers, spouses, grandmothers, uncles, guardians. Entire networks of people and communities were upended, were disheveled, were put into disarray. Like, regardless of whether you think, oh, it's no big deal and life went back to normal, like, there is more stress in the world because we now had to fill gaps for a lot of people that we wouldn't have had to otherwise had COVID 19 not happened. And it happened with like a lot of gaps all at once. Yeah, there has been a disruption to production and supply chain management. There has been a lot of chaos on all fronts. And as much as we can say AI and robotics are going to help, you know, lighten the workload of the labor force, and they have, it still doesn't help that people are emotionally attached to people. Like just having people around you can help fuel your goals, motivate your actions. People don't exist alone. Like being around the right people and being with people that make you feel energized and alive, chances are that's actually going to, you know, help you work better, do more work because it lightens the load. People can help cook, people can help clean, people help support each other's lives, really regardless of whether or not they're partnered up or not. And so you suddenly lose a lot of consistency, stability, routine. Suddenly people who were always there aren't anywhere anymore. There's a lot of nothingness. There's a very big void left behind in the wake of a global tragedy. And as we are becoming a more interconnected world, I think we're all feeling that. On top of, you know, just the disability, the illness, the loss, the upheaval to our daily life and norms, and such a fast, regular, constant, never-ending basis since 2020, we now have the fact that a lot of social relationships imploded. Because guess what happened? A disease that hurts and kills people hurt and killed a lot of people. Remember that? A disease that hurts and kills a lot of people. Hurt and killed a lot of people, regardless of whether they got infected or not. There is a very big loss of life that just happened, and you went through it like I did. There is not a single person on or off Earth, because we have people up in the space station right now, right? Every single person has been affected. Every single person has been affected, whether you believed in the pandemic or not. Because science. 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 That's literally it. Sorry. It's actually harder to breathe now because there was a disease that affected our respiratory system and the human gene. Like, diseases affect our DNA, they affect our immune response, they affect us as people. It is harder to breathe now. It's harder to do things now. People are tired out more easily. People are more likely to snap. People are more easily hurt because a new novel hurt happened on the body. A very new, novel, very intense, and killed a lot of people all at once across the globe. Like, the world did indeed get more stressful. The burden of being alive did indeed get heavier and more intense. And unfortunately, unlike the Kelly Clarkson song, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger," actually, no. Sometimes what doesn't kill you actually does just indeed weaken you. It does indeed just make living harder. It does indeed just slow you down in a world where you are constantly feeling more and more obsolete and left behind by people you thought would be there for you, by people who can't be there for you anymore, any longer, because they're no longer there. And the thing about a pandemic, and I think about our understanding of disease, is we understand that the disease is harbored within other people, that it's harbored on almost anything and everything we can touch. Like, you can pick it up from a table, you can pick it up from an envelope, you can pick it up from the grocery store. Lots of people do and did. Lots of people still are. Life got incredibly terrifying and anxiety inducing, and I think that's not really something that's going to go away. It's going to be something we're figuring out how to deal with, that we are still surviving amidst everything, that we do have medicine, we do have healthcare, we do have other people and family and community and the internet. But it is just harder to trust people and get near people, because you know more and more now that the disease and foreign illnesses could come from places you've never been and people you've never met. Like, you're more aware of the fact this person could be harboring something that they might not even be aware of yet. I don't really I've mentioned before that I wasn't the person that I hoped to have been during my life. I don't think I've ever really been. And the thing I think I wanted to be was there for people that cared about me and made me feel loved and safe and welcomed and supported. The people who made me feel more alive. And the hardest part about that is I don't know if I'm that person for anyone else. I feel like a lot of people lost those people, that they're worried they might lose them again, or worried that they'll never find them anymore. There genuinely were, and are wonderful, authentic outpourings of love from the world through the midst of all the chaos of environmental wildfires, of carbon pollution, of smog, of protest, of poverty, of a global pandemic and an economic haltage. Life changed in a way that I don't think really anyone was prepared to handle, because it hadn't happened before and it hadn't happened yet. Right? Maybe we knew what it was like before for other people living through a global pandemic, or other, like the Spanish flu. I don't think we knew what it was going to be like for us. Because 2021 hadn't happened before 2020. No matter how much you plan, prepare, hope, and expect things to turn out a certain way, life constantly throws you curveballs. The point of why I'm here is to remind you that you went through a global tragedy, a global loss of life, a new novel disease and infection that hurts and kills and disables. The world is more in pain. The world is more stressed out and overwhelmed. A lot of the people who are alive to handle life aren't able to help us handle it anymore. We now have to compensate for everything and anything that got lost and destroyed, broken, you know? What are you supposed to do when you find out your entire family is just no longer there? and you went to Thanksgiving and Christmas and barbecues, proms. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, it's hard enough grieving one person randomly. It's really, really hard to grieve complete and utter groups of strangers across the world, let alone the neighbors within your community. You're probably exhausted and scared and just really stressed out and hoping things work out for the best, that you're finding there's never enough time. There's never enough. Well, maybe for some people don't have the issue of having never enough money, but yeah, life was disrupted. Life was put on pause. Life ended for a lot. Um, and as much as I can say I should have been a better person, quote unquote, some people just died. Lots of people just died. My life was disrupted. I'm still alive. My life got hurt. I'm still alive. I am still alive. My relationships fell apart, probably because they were stressed out and scared too, because they went through a global pandemic. You're not the only one. I'm not the only one. Even the people that I have issues with went through a global pandemic. Some of them were just awful and cruel to me in ways that I cannot forgive or overlook. The guy who wouldn't take me to the hospital when I was begging and crying and screaming because of head pain. At that point, I'd already had to drive myself to the ER because of terrible, terrible, sharp heart pain. I wasn't on medication before a pandemic. I wasn't stressed out about the smallest and minute touching and coughing and sneezings before a global pandemic. I wasn't sneezing and then having a low-level panic attack full of anxiety for 3 weeks before the Ides of March 15th, 2020. I was worried about my yoga workshops. I was making good money. I was building connections with friends. I wonder why everyone got more stressed out, suicidal, hostile towards one another, terrified of other people. Like, more like hesitant and to reach out and connect. I wonder why people kind of like broke down, because a lot of people died. A lot of people got hurt. A lot of people still are just getting hurt. Because there was the initial shock and trigger, like, and now there is the continuation and whatever you might consider the aftermath, because the disease continues to evolve. The infection does just live on in its own ways, alongside everything else in the world that'll kill you, or harm you, or disable you, or shut down your kidneys and put you on dialysis. The world is really, really fucking scary. It's even harder to take on alone or by yourself. I bet a lot of people did things they're not proud of over the last couple of years. I bet there are times you felt powerless and helpless and hurt in ways that you could not control or anticipate, because things kept changing and changing and changing and changing and changing. Like, I didn't have a heart attack or had to drive myself to the ER before a global pandemic and a new novel disease. I didn't really have breakdowns or such horrible anxiety that wouldn't let me sleep until COVID-19 happened. So this is me, putting out where maybe your headspace should be for when you interact with other people or see people suffering or hear something else horrible on the news is that, yep, there is no going back to normal. There is actually only a lot more work to do. There are relationships to repair. There are people to heal. There are people in the midst of healing, myself included. I went to the chiropractor today, and I'm lucky enough that I just got my first paid vacation in my career. Things are going well. Despite all the anxieties that I have, despite all the hurts and pains and traumas that probably are going to have to be worked through and stay with me, because I went through a global tragedy, something that hurt everyone. A pandemic did not make anyone's life better. A pandemic actually just hurt us more and more, made everything more big, made everything more sharp, made everything more intense. Life did just get more intense and stressful. And let's be real. Things like this happen throughout life. One of the most standout stories to me within the Bible is the book of Job, where, if you're not familiar with Christianity, the book of Job is a story about a man named Job who has it set. He's got a good family, he's got lots of wealth and land and animals, and the devil comes up to God and says, "Let me ruin his life and test his faith. I bet he will forsake you." And God says, "Okay, go ahead, do whatever you want. I will not help him. No matter how much he prays, no matter how pious he is, he will suffer." Everything is lost, killed, plagues, famines, disease. Job just gets a shit life for a while. And you know what? Despite everything that's happened, he doesn't forsake God. He stays honest and loyal in his faith. Eventually, he is rewarded with a new wife, more land, more animals. Things don't go back to normal, but you realize that the lesson to be learned is that life does move on. The lesson to be learned is recovery is possible. That despite tragedy occurring, if you continue to live and you continue to stay devoted towards, whatever might be important to you, or whatever has to be important to you, that new good things can happen in your life, that new doors of opportunity and possibility can open. You're not ever going to get back what you lost, because if I lose my house and get a new house, I didn't find home again. I just got a new house. I found a new home. That loss is kind of part of life. It sucks. It is awful. It is painful. But the important part of life is not the pain. The important part of life is the growth. The possibilities, the opportunities that not to avoid. So, sometimes tragedy will just strike your life. Sometimes disease will just ruin your day. And sometimes you will just get hit by a car and maybe disabled. And there's just no reason or fault, and you can look and look and look and look. But life does move on. Life does just bring you damage to deal with. It does just bring you pain. Don't value pain in and of itself. Value the growth beyond pain, from pain, through pain. Value the things that help you survive, not the things that make life harder. Don't value the damage, because it's not the damage that itself is valuable. The damage itself is not valuable. The damage itself is the thing that makes life harder to live, that inhibits your ability to be there for people, that makes you scared. I don't think life is hopeless. I think life is just more complicated and big and overwhelming than any one person can reasonably ever predict, comprehend, understand. I think it's just harder right now. I think it's just harder. And we're getting there. As long as you're alive, you're getting there. Oh, thank the Lord. My battery's in low power mode. Yeah. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm saying now. Here's what I'm saying to you. And here's what I'm saying to myself. Remember that there was a time before the pain. There will be a time after the pain. It might not ever really be like the time before, but there is a time after the pain. And the time after the pain is the time where you realize, wow, I did learn, I did grow, I did get through something awful, and I have something to provide and offer the rest of the world who also did that awful, terrible thing together with me. You have something to offer. Even if you are hurt, even if you are broken, even if you are scared and sad and lonely, you have something to offer. Because what is life about? Learning how other people survive and thrive in a difficult, harsh, and sometimes unforgiving world. In a world that goes out of their way to cause them harm and suffering. There is something to be gleaned by you being alive, even if it is painful and scary. Do things the way that help you keep moving. Be there for yourself and other people as much as you can. Don't be afraid of conflict. Don't be afraid of fighting either. Remember that what's at fault is not your body. What is at fault is the damage and the pain and the trauma that keeps on trying to get in its way and break it down. You yourself are not the problem. The hurricane that destroyed your house is the problem. The tornado that destroyed your house is the problem. The fire that destroyed your house is the problem. The disease that hurts you and other people and kills people is the problem. The random lightning that strikes your house was the problem. The ice on the road was the problem. And sometimes you can prepare as much as you can or want to, and it's still not enough, right? You are not the problem. You are never the problem. Your body is not the problem. Your brain is not the problem. The damage is the problem. The healing is, how do I make my problems into solutions for other people? How do I make my pain a challenge to be overcome and survived, so that other people going through the same challenges can survive it better? How can I help make life easier instead of harder for those I know and love, when we are all going through something more difficult and stressful and scary? Keep in mind, people could probably use more help than you think they do. because a lot of loss and death and tragedy did just happen. Be kind to yourself by being kind to others as much as you can. Everyone probably had a breakdown or two, or a relationship that broke down, or a loved one who's hurt and no longer there with them, or problems that just kept on happening, because yeah, problems kept on happening and keep on happening. And a really big, awful one happened to a lot of people all at once. Maybe you went through a global pandemic and you found out that you're a human being and that everyone else is a human being too. God bless. Namaste. Keep up the good work. I know it's hard out there. All right. Love you.